We are very fortunate to have Lawrence Academy presenting today with Mike Polzanetti, Dean of Admission and Enrollment Management, along with Christine Turigian, Director of Learning Support, as well as Assistant Dean of Academics. And later on, we will have a very special guest joining who is out touring right now. It will be alumni Conor Mclaughlin, who is honestly should be on a speaker series right now. He's quite fabulous. So I'd like to hand this over to Mike. Thank you, Mike.
Good morning, everyone. Can I get a thumbs up if you can hear me and see me properly? Okay. Well, thank you for having us today and joining us on Zoom. We've got a nice presentation for the Carroll family. I just quickly want to introduce myself and give you a little bit of a layout of kind of what we're going to do this morning. So again, Mike Polzanetti, Dean of Admission and Enrollment. I am new at Lawrence Academy. I started in July, so I consider myself a new family. So I give you a new perspective, and feel free to ask me a lot of questions. I've been able to do research and have caught up to speed quickly. I was previously at an independent school in Southwest Connecticut for 7 years prior to LA, and I've also spent time at Northeastern University and Brandeis University in their admission office. So broad range of higher education admissions and then independent school admissions. And then people always ask me, as a new faculty member and a new member of the community, like what brought you to Lawrence Academy? Because I always ask students what brought them to our admission lounge, so they kind of return the question on me. And so 3 points I hit upon are, I'm originally from the area, so it was a bit of a homecoming. We got one more admit to join. So that's an easy geographic piece for me, but ultimately why I chose Lawrence Academy, because the warm, welcoming community, the students are happy, and I really just wanted to be at a place where it was family oriented, students were happy, and I could feel that community at every angle I went to. So a little bit about me. Now I'm going to let Christine Turigian introduce herself, our Director of Learning Support. And then a quick mention, Connor, our student helper, is out on tour right now. So I will let him introduce himself when he returns in about 20 or 30 minutes.
So hello, everyone. My name is Christine Turigian. I am the Director of Learning Support here at Lawrence Academy and also the Assistant Dean of Academics. In both roles, I'm primarily working with students who may need some academic support. This is my 3rd year at Lawrence Academy. During my time here at Lawrence Academy, I've done learning coaching. I've taught English classes, both sophomore and junior. I've run the the ACT and SAT testing, and I've coached cross country. A little bit more about me is that prior to being at Lawrence Academy, I was at the Carroll School. Was there, I think, for the years went by quickly, but I think it was about 11 years. I taught 7th grade and 8th grade English at the Carroll School, and then I worked with Charlene and Cece in high school placement. And so I've probably taught students similar to your children, and also worked with families like yours in terms of finding the next school for your child. So I think I can offer a unique perspective. So in terms of what Mike just said, I'll add to what brought me to Lawrence Academy. I honestly love Carroll. It's really part of who I am. Always will be. I worked with Steve Wilkins' mother, Angie Wilkins, years ago to get my master's degree in special education. She changed my life. I'm still very much connected to the teachers at Carroll School. So question is, why would I leave? And the reason is because the commute just really was too far for me. It was just too far. It was taking up almost 2.5 hours of my day, which I knew I needed to use elsewhere to maintain some level of sanity. So what brought me to Lawrence Academy was that it's right down the street from my house, but more importantly, and most importantly, because I wouldn't be here otherwise, it is a place that supports students. I could not work someplace that did not understand and support students and be willing to work with them and put their success first and foremost. So there are not a lot of schools out there that do that. Fortunately, this one's very close to my home, so it's worked out well. It's a great community of students, a great community of faculty, a great community of admin, and I'm happy to be here. If Carroll would move closer, it will be tough for me to not switch back, but I'll stop there.
Thanks, Christine. Carroll, you cannot steal Christine from us. No, but just to add on to Christine, I've been here since July, and the reason the school is so supportive is because of people in her position and what she does. So absolute luxury to have her on campus. She's one of the best in the business. So the luxury of this conversation is, if your student enrolls at LA, they'll be in great hands with Christine, her team, and all the other adults at Lawrence Academy. So now I kind of just wanted to move into some admission slides. Depending on how familiar you are with Lawrence Academy, some of this may be repetitive, some of it may be brand new. So I'm just going to run through 4 or 5 slides from the admission side of things, and then we're going to transition into kind of academics, learning support, and let Christine talk a lot about that. And then at the end, we will get Conor to provide some depth on the student experience, have him answer some questions, and of course, open it up to the crowd. If you do have any questions, feel free to place them in the chat. And if we miss them, just keep putting it in there. That's usually the best way to operate and for us to make sure we get through all your questions. So what I'm going to do now is just share my screen and move into a little bit of a presentation mode. Christine, does that look good on your end?
It does.
Okay. All right. So thanks for joining us. We're just going to skip through this slide. We kind of already talked about that. So some of you have a good idea of where we are. Some of you haven't been to campus yet. So I just want to briefly highlight our location. Something that drew me to Lawrence Academy was just the prime location we are in. As you can see in New England, and then drilling down into the New England map, we're 45 minutes west of Boston in Groton, Massachusetts. And it's, for those who haven't been to campus yet, please come visit us. We are right on Main Street, which I'll talk about in the next slide. But that proximity to Boston, being in Groton in a small town, gives us a lot of leverage on the day and boarding side, which I'll get into a little bit. So if you're looking as a day student, you're going to have all the opportunities a boarding student has, minus sleeping over. So if you're a Carroll student and you're looking to come to LA as a day student, we're going to have a lot of events on the weekends. We're going to have full scheduling available for boarding students that you can fully participate in. And then if you are a boarding student, we're going to have jam-packed weekends. We're going to have games. We're going to have dances. So whether you fall on a boarding or day student side of things, you'll have full capabilities to do everything on campus. And the way I like to describe the relationship is finally, day students can do everything boarding students can do, minus sleeping over. If you did need to sleep over, I'm sure we'd find a way to accommodate you. Great. And then drilling down into Groton, being on Main Street in Groton, Massachusetts is such a luxury. We have a really safe community. Of course, being at a boarding school, you have a lot of adults who live on campus. There's dorm parents, your teachers live on campus. But in addition to that, our campus is also considered Main Street. I'm going to quickly run through some highlights of Main Street. For boarding students, for families visiting, we have a beautiful Groton Inn. There's Gibbet Hill, which is a really great restaurant locally that we have a lot of events at for the school. As you can see, our location is right on Main Street. Something exciting that we're introducing in the fall of 22 is a partnership with, it's now called Groton Hill Music Center. So we've got to update that slide. But Groton Hill Music Center is a multi-million-dollar new complex, a 2-minute drive from campus, probably a 5 or 7-minute walk for students. And for students interested in instrumental music, they will have the capability to do an hour and 15-minute ensemble and a 45-minute private lesson at Groton Hill Music Center. And if you have more questions on Groton Hill, you play an instrument and want to dive deeper into that, just let me know. I can talk all day about our new partnership with Groton Hill Music Center. Then we have cafes, Salt and Light. There's a Dunkin' Donuts. I drive in from Westford every morning and I see all the students running to Dunkin' Donuts for their morning coffee. So just a real luxury to be on Main Street at a beautiful location in Groton. Okay, cool. So just to run through some facts about LA, we do a lot on campus. I think the most impressive piece for me when I got to Lawrence Academy was students can really select what they want to do and customize their schedules to have great balance in the classroom with clubs, afternoon program, theater, music. So for a school of, right now we're at 422 students. For a school of 422, the offerings we have are extremely robust, whether in the classroom or outside of it. So let me just highlight, I'll run through most of these kind of pieces. And again, if you have questions, throw them in the chat. So we do 3 theater productions per year. We just got through our fall play, which was a great hit. We've had a lot of underclassmen representation in that cast, so it's really exciting to see their development over the next few years. We are at 422 students with the goal of next year of being around 418. So we're going to just reduce the capacity a little bit. Our average class size is 12. Of course, there's classes that are bigger than that, and of course, there are classes smaller than that. So we feel comfortable at that 12 student size. Day and boarding comes up a lot. We have a 50, right now we're a little bit heavier on the day side, so it's like 52 or 53% day students and 50% boarding, with a goal of next year to be 50-50. And like I said, the luxury of being a day student at a boarding school is you have all the afternoon, evening programming and weekend programming. And then again, for boarding students, you have all that programming baked in. Something I really enjoy is Lawrence Academy was founded in 1793, so it's got tremendous tradition. And if you talk to our students, I always ask them to tell families what their favorite tradition is, because I like hearing about it. And one highlight for me is that I experienced this year was something called Mountain Day. And when I heard about Mountain Day, I was like, okay, the whole school is going to go climb a mountain. And in my head, I pictured like a little hill in Massachusetts. So in reality, the whole school gets in coach buses. It's a Monday at the beginning of the year. We take the whole campus, faculty, staff, the dining hall goes, and we climb Mount Monadnock in New Hampshire. And when I got to Mount Monadnock, I was shocked at how big it was. It was a real live mountain that our whole school climbed. And my favorite part was not the excursion, but having the dining hall services there. They're at the base of the mountain. They cooked a great lunch for us. So when the students got back to the bottom of the mountain, it was like this great community event on a Monday in the fall, and just like a little piece that you don't hear about in the admission process that happens throughout the year. Another piece I'll mention is kind of just the breakdown of international and domestic students. We have a great representation internationally. Right now, we're at about 10% international with the goal to grow that to 12%. We have students from all over the world. Really gives a nice flair to campus life. Great student faculty ratio, 5-to-1, and the faculty here are amazing. You'll hear from Christine, and if you've been to campus and met some teachers, you'll see that secondhand. We are part of the ISL for our athletic competitions, and one of the better leagues to be represented in from an athletic standpoint. We play a lot of schools and they're pretty much local. So, we don't travel too much for athletic competitions. I'd say a nice 45-minute radius, and you're playing most of our schools. Baked into our academic schedule, which I'll go through in a minute, is our clubs. We have a lot of representation through affinity groups, through fun clubs, so a lot of different clubs to pick and choose from at LA. 140 course offerings, 40 advanced courses, great college counseling. Our students get to the one of their top 3 college choices. We are the Spartans, and we have a beautiful 140-acre campus. If you haven't been here, please come visit. All right, moving into our schedule. So this is my favorite piece of the presentation. Gives you a nice sample into our day-to-day. And what I tell families and especially students is, if you don't like the schedule when you visit a school, you should really investigate that, because that's going to be your day-to-day. That's going to be how you operate. And if you don't like how the layout of the classes are or the breaks are, you really have to identify what builds you up for success. So quickly going to highlight my favorite pieces. So as you can see, we're on a 5-day rotation, Monday through Friday. We do not offer classes on Saturday. Some schools do. Our Wednesdays finish up early, so we're finished up around 1:10, and that's designed for our students to do athletic competitions in the afternoon. Our games are on Wednesdays and Saturdays for the most part. As you can see, our class blocks are long, and we have 4 per day. What I really love about this schedule, and Christine and Connor can talk to their favorite pieces when they get to it, is there's no back-to-back classes. So students always have time to regain their academic footing. Particularly of interest is every day after first period, you have an opportunity to meet with your advisor, either in an assembly setting or in a small advisory setting. And it's a great way to start your morning. You go to your first period and you get a little breather where you can regain academic footing. You can talk to an adult if you have questions. So just a nice breather to continue your academic day. Then you have your second course, lunch, third course. After third course, we have a little programming baked in. Omnibus is a wide range of descriptions. So it could be current events, it could be check-in time with your advisor, it could be programming from our school, and that's only on Mondays. And then we have office hours after your third period the rest of the week. And I like to note that the 4 classes per day makes the homework management piece extremely manageable for students, and relieves a lot of stress from your plate. You don't have to worry about a day where you have 6 classes and a lot of homework, and you have a lot of opportunities to meet with your teachers. And we'll just quickly grab A block. So if you have A block, and we'll say it's US history, it will meet on Mondays at 8 o'clock. You do not meet Tuesday. It meets Wednesday, and then it meets Friday. And the differences between our red week and our blue week are primarily the class rotations. So again, if you look at A block on blue week, it changes. So it gives you a different pace and pattern on a weekly basis, which is really good to break up any academic monotony. It keeps the students fresh. And the other difference between our red and blue week is we offer a student club block baked into our Monday scheduling. So a really good schedule. I'll let Christine chime in if she wants to highlight any pieces on the academic learning support side.
Thanks, Mike. I would say I agree with you in terms of the 4 blocks per day and the time in between those blocks. So, for my Carroll families, I think this has been really valuable with for students in general. But for the students that I work with for learning support, just having that time in between, no back-to-back classes. So you come out of math, or you come out of A block, and maybe it's your math class and you're feeling a little stressed about it. You don't have to jump into another class and transition quickly and still hold on to whatever stress you were feeling from A block. Not that everyone's feeling stressed, but it gives you an opportunity. So you go to your A block, and then you have time. You can either check in with your teacher, you can check in with your learning coach, you can check in with your advisor, or share that information, and then be able to move on from it before you go to your next block, which I really appreciate about the schedule. I also really like the longer blocks. I think for students, it gives them an opportunity or teachers an opportunity to sort of switch up what they're doing. So in an English class, they might have a discussion about a text they're reading, They might work through a writing prompt, and then they might have an opportunity to do some type of individual project that they're working on. It really gives faculty and students an opportunity to work on a number of different things during that block. Whenever I've taught an English class, I've always asked students, how do you guys feel about this 75-minute block? And I've always had students say, I actually kind of like it. I actually sort of like the pace. I like that I don't feel as rushed. I like to feel that we can cover more material, and I'm always more prepared to do my homework. So I like the longer blocks. I agree about the homework piece, to have 2 nights to do homework is great. And also, if you have D block on Monday, it gives you all of Tuesday to touch base with teachers again, or learning coaches or advisors if you're having any difficulty with assignments. So I do think it's a schedule that provides, I think, sort of a sense of calm in terms of students' approach to their academics. I also want to go back to a second about Mountain Day, because I enjoy Mountain Day as well. And as we were driving to Mountain Day on these, I think there were quite a few coach buses that we got on. As we were driving to Mountain Day, I thought to myself, what if I was just a guy who took this day off to climb Mount Monadnock, and I'm going to end up being there with 415 plus people from Lawrence Academy? That might be a bit of an issue for me. And so I thought about that as I went up the mountain and came down the mountain, and I heard more and more people say, yeah, it's a little crowded, but the students were amazing. They were accommodating. They were fun to talk to as they walked by me. They were just so wonderful on the mountain. And I think said a lot about, we had this special day out, but everyone just really represented Lawrence Academy well because they're great kids. Throw it back to you, Mike.
Thanks, Christine. Cool. So obviously, agree with everything Christine said. Really good schedule. I wish I had this schedule in high school, is what I always had. Moving on to our next slide, what makes LA different? We covered a pretty good amount of things so far, but I mean, some things I like to highlight when you're looking at some schools is we have a supportive learning environment that's very different than other schools. And kind of baked into that learning environment is our advisory program, and that's highlighted in just the touch points throughout the day. Very rarely in independent schools do you connect for 20 minutes of structured time with your advisor on a daily basis. It is extremely rare. I don't know many schools who are doing it. So that piece is essential to fostering faculty and student relationships, getting students to the appropriate people every day, and really just not missing a beat. So that advisory program is unique and impressive. We have an individualized academic experience, which Christine can kind of work towards in some later slides, and then of course, learning coaching. On top of those pieces, we offer a winterim program, and we had winterim night, I believe, 2 nights ago. And for those who don't know the winterim program, it's a period of time, about 2 weeks in March, where our students remove themselves from the classroom and kind of move in towards a little bit of experiential learning. And we have opportunities to stay locally or travel nationally, and hopes of, again, traveling internationally. So it's a really unique program. And the piece I like to highlight is we're in year 50 of winterim. So it's not a project that we started like 3 or 4 years ago and are trying to figure out. We're very good at winterim. And some examples, if you were to stay locally, you could design your own board game. You could build a canoe. Some national trips would be to canoe the Rio Grande or do scuba diving lessons in the Florida Keys. And in the past, some international trips have been archaeology in Italy, bullet train research in China. So the programming for winterim is incredible. Really, the only parallel in education that I can find right now is Northeastern University's co-op, considering the longevity and the scale of things with the winterim program. And of course, the partnership with Groton Hill Music Center, which I highlighted at the beginning, the traditions of Mountain Day. We have Spoon Hunt, which is a week-long game of tag on campus that the students really enjoy. And we have an awesome offering of afternoon programs for students who are interested in sports, outdoors, dance, theater, whatever you're primary interested in. I'm pretty sure we can offer a program for that. toss it always over to Christine if she has anything to add on the differentiators for LA. You're on mute.
I agree with everything that you're saying. And I also, we can talk more as we go through the slides about the individualized academic experience and learning coaching and how that is such a key part of our community and how I do think it sets us apart. So we can talk more about that as we move on. Traditions are great. I just did spoon hunt with the students, first time this year. Anxiety ridden, and a lot of anxiety, but I really enjoyed it.
We'll let Connor talk about spoon hunt. We'll ask him some spoon hunt questions when he comes.
Yeah. I ended up driving around campus instead of walking around campus because I didn't want to get caught.
So we like to have fun at LA too. And then I just always want to run through our mission because it rings true. For a mission that was established in 1793 to be relevant today is extremely impressive. So Lawrence Academy recognizes you for who you are, inspires you to take responsibility for who you want to become, and empowers you to take action for the greater good. If you hear Mr. Scheibe on campus, he will tell you the mission, and it is extremely relevant today, something I really enjoy seeing, reading, and for parents and students gives you a good perspective on, where our center is. All right, so that transitions us out of just kind of the overall LA admission piece. Now we can dive into LA's culture of learning support. I actually just saw Connor bringing his tour back, so I think he'll sign on in about 5 minutes. We're going to save the questions in the white box for Connor. So right now I'll pass it over to Christine to just give you an idea of the culture of learning support at all.
Thank you. I did want to say, while you were talking, Mike, there was a question in the chat about whether we have 2 trimesters or semesters or trimesters, and we do have trimesters. So we're just finishing our first trimester in the next couple of weeks. So I encourage you who are watching to ask questions if I'm moving too fast, because I really want to explain our learning support program carefully so that you understand what LA is all about in terms of learning support. And first, I just want to say that, there's support throughout a student's LA experience, regardless of whether you're someone who's using learning support, whether you're someone who has a diagnosis or has an evaluation. It is a supportive environment. And Mike has talked about a couple of the things we offer. So we have office hours. There's office hours 3 times a week, 40-minute periods where teachers are required to be in their classrooms and students can go and ask questions. And that creates an environment where a student who might have missed some information or might be working on a homework assignment that they're finding difficult, gives them an opportunity to go to their teacher, meet with their teacher, and ask those questions. So we have those on Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. We don't have them on Wednesday because we end the day early because of sports, and we don't have them on Monday because we do omnibus. But it's a great opportunity to meet with the teacher and ask specific questions. It also creates an environment where students recognize that, hey, I can go ask questions and it's not a bad thing to ask questions. And what I tell some of my learning support students who are a little shy at first to go use office hours is, what you're going to find out is this teacher is going to be very supportive and willing to work with you, but also there's going to be students in there who are looking for support as well. And what really happens often is that you find 4 or 5 students who you realize, oh, I can work with these guys and I can get support from them as well. And it's all good to ask for support. So office hours is one place in the community where you can get support. Teachers are also willing to work with you if you can't make office hours. If you've got to be in 2 places at once in terms of office hours, teachers are willing to say to you, look, I have C block free. Do you have C block free? I'll work with you then. Oh, we don't have a free block? We can work together after school. We can work together before school. One of the positives of COVID, if there are any, is that we all learned that this mode of communication can work. So I know that I get calls from students that, when they're at study hall, some of our boarders will call me from study hall and say, look, do you just have a few minutes to just touch base about an assignment I'm working on? We can use our Teams. We use Microsoft Teams as the way we do remote discussions at LA, and we can just do that. So teachers are willing to meet with students and provide support, just in general across the campus. Now, for students who might need a little bit more support, a little bit more structure to their support, we have our Learning Support Program. And I think of it as a program that's been in place for a while. It's very mature. It's not something that we're just starting to work on right now. It's been in place for a while. The trajectory of it has always been forward moving in terms of making adjustments to better support our students. I think the second bullet here is so true. Lawrence Academy isn't a regular education school that just has some students that need support. We are a school that recognizes our neurodiversity. We celebrate our neurodiversity. We appreciate our students who learn differently, and we are always working to fulfill the mission for all students, including our students who need support. Next slide, Mike.
Connor just hopped in. Connor, can you hear me?
Yep.
Connor's going to get the gold star from the admission office today. He just got back from a tour. I'm going to bring him to Dunkin' Donuts after to get him something nice. But Connor, I just want to run through a couple of those questions in the white box with you. So if you could just introduce yourself to the crowd, let them know, where you're from, grade, day, board, extracurriculars, leadership positions, anything you think relevant for the group.
Yeah, definitely. Hi, everyone. I'm Conor Mclaughlin. I'm from Lincoln, Massachusetts. I graduated from Carroll. I came to LA. I'm a 3-year day student, so I'm a junior. Yeah, I love it here. I'm part of the Elm Tree Society. I do use a learning support. I'm also the president of the World Topics Discussion Clubs on campus. And yeah, that's pretty much about it. I also play varsity golf, and I also play JV basketball.
Awesome. Thanks, Connor. Just going to ask you 3 questions. And so I'll start with the first one. How do you access help outside the classroom? So you're in learning support. Like, how do you operate and get access to help?
So I normally use my learning coach as one of those kind of person to bounce ideas off of. Miss Coffin, she's great. She's a math teacher here. So I normally access it through office hours, but I also go see her before a big exam. She'll tell me, maybe spend a little extra time in math or maybe spend a little extra time in English. She really helps me kind of plan out where I need to go and when I need to do it and more prioritize. I also, am in very good in contact with my teachers. So in case I, can't get to an office hours, a lot of my teachers are also willing to meet me outside of class and kind of help me ask the academic day for 5 minutes and answer my questions I might have, so I can kind of, work towards making whatever I'm working on a little bit
better. Great. Thanks, Connor. So what was it like to go from a school like Carroll with lots of scaffolding and support to a school like LA? How was the transition from Carroll to LA specifically for you?
So for me, it was a little daunting, but also I wouldn't change it. It definitely taught me how to work around challenging, obstacles. So for me, I was a little bit baffled that I wasn't always kind of, had someone leaning over my shoulder, making sure I'm doing what I need to do. It definitely made my phone a little bit more enticing during free block when I was trying to, get my homework done. But it definitely kind of lets you, learn a little bit more and develop those skills of self-advocating and kind of, learning how to plan around. It definitely, was able to definitely take my planning skills that I had from Carroll and translate them into the Lawrence Academy academic planning, along with just making sure I was, keeping up to date. I know I slipped up a little bit in math my freshman year, but I was able to, get back to what I learned at Carroll and use that at LA to kind of get that math grade back to where it needed to be.
Awesome. Thanks, Connor. And then can you describe, you kind of alluded to it in math, but do you have another example of a challenge you faced at LA and how you overcame it? And you can dig deeper into the math situation you had, or maybe select a different one.
I might go deeper into math just because it was very comparable. I came from my 8th grade math class with Miss McLear, the head of the math department at Carroll, and she was very on me. She was intact with me, always talking to me, making sure I was getting what I needed to get done. I understood every kind of part of the homework and part of the curriculum. And then I got to Lawrence Academy, where they kind of they make you advocate for yourself. So for math, I slipped up a little bit. I wasn't really grasping the material as well as I should have. And, it really kind of made me realize that if I take what I learned at Carroll instead of trying to move on from it, then I would be able to, get back to where I was at Carroll with the math and understanding it and really succeeding in class. So how I overcame it was I reached out to my teacher, Mr. Gillis. He's great. He's now my advisor. I reached out to him and we set up times to meet outside the academic day, whether it was office hours or on Wednesdays we had a half day. So I would go see him for an hour every Wednesday before I got on the bus, just to really, dig deeper into the material and make sure I was grasping it and kind of making my way back to where I wanted to be as a math student.
Perfect. Thanks, Connor. Christine, I'm going to move on to the next slide if you want to get us moving in that direction.
Sure. So specifics about the learning coaching program, and I think there are a couple of questions in the chat about this. So we have 9 full-time faculty who are learning coaches, 2 part-time. About 70 of our 400 students are enrolled in the program, meaning they are using a learning coach. Now, in terms of that number, there's some fluctuation there. Students don't have to sign up for learning coaching for a full year. They might do 1 trimester or 2 trimesters and then talk with their learning coach, their advisor, parents, and decide that maybe they don't need learning coaching anymore. Our goal here at Lawrence Academy is not to keep you in learning coaching. It's to give you the skills that you need, the strategy that you need, so that you no longer need learning coaching. There are students here at Lawrence Academy who have a diagnosed learning disability who do not use learning coaching. Learning coaching is basically, it's working with a learning coach, one-to-one. So your student would come to Lawrence Academy, make the decision to use the learning support program, and then they would be assigned a learning coach who they would meet with either once or twice per week for 35 minutes each session. Those sessions take place in the academic day. So if you think back to the schedule that Mike shared a couple slides ago, within that schedule would be learning coaching. That's something that anyone has to add time to their day to use. The decision to have 1 or 2 sessions per week is really a conversation with parents, student, advisor, etc., to see what makes most sense for the student. Just because you're working with a learning coach just twice a week and that's in your schedule, it does not mean that you cannot touch base with your learning coach outside of learning coaching. As Connor said, they're available to you. Your learning coaching is sort of another person on campus that you can look to if you need support. Learning coaching can take place in any of our buildings here on campus. We have made that decision intentionally because we want to incorporate it into our community at every level. So my office is in the academic building. I do learning coaching here. Learning coaching can take place in the schoolhouse. It can take place in the library. It's just a part of a student's schedule. Students just, go to their learning coach, just like they go to their math class. There's no big issue with it. It does, someone asked in the chat, there is an additional fee for learning coaching. That is part of our brochure that I can send out to you, you can get access to. I think that is the program in a nutshell.
Yeah, thanks, Christine. We have some good, got some feedback. Yeah, we have some great brochures that kind of go through the breakdown of tuition, financial aid, learning support fees, and any other fees that may accompany your time at LA. So happy to get that to Carroll. I'll send over some information. But now I kind of just want to shift it to the student experience from the learning coaching program. And Connor, you alluded to the self-advocacy skills that you've already learned. So I'm going to kind of bypass that question and move into what has your learning coach helped you with the most throughout your time at LA?
So I would say my learning coach has helped me with 2 things that have been very kind of focal throughout my Lawrence Academy career, which has been self-advocacy, and then just also the extra graze over a big assignment. So, coming from Carroll, when I would write a paper, I would always have my dad look it over as kind of a grammatical, make sure everything flowed. And we got a little at each other because we disagreed on some things. So my learning coach, Miss Doherty, who I had, was awesome. She would look it over and she would say, "Hey, his idea isn't bad here," or, "Hey, you have a good idea here. You just need to kind of tweak it to this." So I would say I still use my learning coach today. And I'd say that's one of the biggest things I use her for, is for my editing and my making sure everything looks good and flows correctly, just because that extra look over gives me the confidence when I submit my assignment. And I would say that's been the biggest help for me in, eliminating those unnecessary errors that I might have. Also the self-advocacy piece. I know my learning coach now. I have a couple new teachers this year to the school, so we've had some learning curves and bumps along the way. With that being said, my learning coach has been awesome. She's been there to meet with me each week, and making sure I'm, meeting with them, and, what good question I can bring to a specific teacher in order to get the most out of our meeting. She's also great at making sure I'm, asking the right questions, along with editing my papers. They're just really here to work for you and work with you, making sure that you feel that you're exceeding to the top of your ability.
Wonderful. And can you talk about how your experience from the learning coaching side has evolved over time? I'm sure your relationship with your learning coach in grade 9 is a little bit different than grade 11. Can you just talk about your needs moving throughout 9 through 11 and how that transition has gone for you, Connor?
Yeah. So, when I first came into the learning coaching program, I definitely needed a little bit more support. So I had my learning coach checking in with me, emailing me, devising the plan. And then maybe at night I'd get the occasional email like, "Hey, you complete your math assignment yet?" And then through that, it helped me kind of, I wanted to avoid all that because I didn't want to feel like someone had to be checking in with me and I had to be dependent on somebody. So I kind of, through developing with Lawrence Academy, I was able to, they started to pull back a little bit and, move into more just being an avocation, a resource for you to use whenever you need it. Right now, since going from sitting down and doing assignments and having my learning coach kind of on me about doing my assignments, now I more use my learning coach for, I check in with her once a week. So I went from checking in with twice a week during my free block to once a week. And I really use her for the self-advocacy part that I talked about before, and more for the second grades over of kind of big homework assignments and stuff like that. So I've definitely started to depend on them a little bit less, and it's allowed me to be more confident in what I'm doing as a Lawrence Academy student.
Perfect. Thanks, Connor. We're going to move over to the next slide.
And before we go to the next slide, can I just jump in?
Yeah.
Connor, I appreciate your answer there. Would it be fair to say that your learning coach, knew you, they recognized you for who you are as a learner, and really met you where you were based on whether it was freshman, sophomore, or junior year?
Yes, they definitely do recognize you with you. There's also a lot of communication. Like, I know for me, I got kind of lucky. I had Miss Turigi and I both came from Carroll at the same year. So she was a good advocate for me with my learning coach. But they're always working with your kind of parents. Like, learning coaches are always intact with my parents when I was a freshman. And same for my younger brother now. They're definitely intact. His learning coach is intact with my parents. Really, they try to get to know the student that they're working with so they can best provide the help that's needed.
Right. And so you stated some of the things that you worked on with your learning coaches. And I think it's important for people to know that it's not just a prescribed program. So as a learning coach, I'm going to get to know my students. It may take a little bit of time, but I'll get to know them, communicate with parents, and determine as we go what types of things we're going to be working on during those sessions. We could work on understanding content. We could work on developing skills. We could work on organization and planning. We could work on self-advocacy. One of the things I tell people all the time is sometimes when you come in as a freshman and you feel your learning coach says, well, you need to go to office hours and advocate yourself with your teacher, you think, oh, I'm not quite sure I'm ready for that. I have walked many a student over to the math teacher or the history teacher and made the formal introduction and, okay, this is office hours, and it takes one time, maybe twice, before that student is totally comfortable. But it's just an example of some of the things that you may not think of that we're doing to support our students. Now we can switch over.
I saw a question that came in the chat, and probably good for Conor to address, why you chose LA. What drew you into the community when you were looking at some schools?
Sorry, I was on mute. I would say something that drew me in was kind of the participation in class along with the kind of bigger community. I know that for Carroll kids, it's sometimes a little bit daunting to walk into a class, but because of the similar class sizes to Carroll, it kind of allowed me to feel comfortable in what I was kind of presenting in class and how I was presenting in class. Along with that, I definitely felt drawn to the community because I know that Carroll's a little bit smaller compared to other middle schools. And the way I kind of looked at it was I would be able to grow here as a student and socially to kind of, make myself, acclimate into a bigger school. So it definitely allows kids to grow in coming from Carroll. It allows them to grow as students socially and really feel comfortable with kind of a bigger setting than what they had been, input in for the past couple of years.
Awesome. Thanks, Conor. So the next slide we have is kind of just a breakdown of accommodations at LA. So Christine, do you mind touching on a few of those points?
Sure. I think I'm going to take a bit of a bigger picture look at this. So when you apply to Lawrence Academy from Carroll, I'm going to make an assumption that you have some type of neuropsych evaluation. So you would send that in, and that would be reviewed as part of the application. It's just part of the application. It's a way for us to understand prior to you walking through the door in September or August, whenever we start. It's a way for us to understand your student and be prepared for the supports we would need to provide. So we would get the neuropsych. So then you're accepted. What I would do is take that neuropsych and I write what's called the learning profile. Anyone who comes in with an evaluation gets a learning profile. The learning profile includes the diagnosis, a narrative about how the student learns. It provides some suggested strategies that can be used in the classroom, and it provides accommodations. That learning profile, which is really written using the neuropsych, is then shared with the team of teachers that the student would work with. So it's one of the ways the teachers can get to know a student. So included in that learning profile would be the accommodations. Now you may look at your neuropsych and have many more accommodations on it than what we have on the screen right here. But Lawrence Academy has really made the decision in terms of these are the accommodations that we were sort of officially honored, that we can say to our teachers, you are required to provide these accommodations. Now, we go through them, 50% additional time on in-class quizzes, tests, and exams. So there's assessment week next week. Our students who have 50% additional time are fully aware of it. They've worked with their teachers to determine how they're going to work that additional time, and they'll get it for those exams. Small group setting for assessments, use of calculator, no penalty for spelling errors, use of computer for written tasks, use of audiobooks, language waiver. Those are the ones that we will honor. These are, if they're in your neuropsych, these will be what we provide you. Sorry. Now, that being said, if you have other accommodations on your neuropsych that are valuable to your student, we can have conversations with teachers about how they can be implemented and if they can be implemented in the classroom. So one that comes up often is ability to access notes in the classroom. So people will come in and say, my child has a really hard time taking notes. Can they get copies of teacher notes? And Conor, I might ask you to answer this question. There's no expectation that when a student comes into Lawrence Academy in 9th grade that they are going to be an expert note taker. It's a process. We are still teaching students the proper way to take notes. Some students are going to take it on paper. Some are going to use their computer. There might be guided notes. There'll be maybe skeleton notes. So this is sort of my long way of saying, these are the accommodations we offer, But there are others that are in a neuropsych that we may not be able to offer, but we understand that they're important for your student, and we're willing to work with you, and teachers are willing to work with you in terms of how we can provide them in a classroom. Does that make sense to you, Connor?
A little bit.
John,
Yeah.
your experience?
Yeah, I could share my note-taking experience, I guess. So for me, freshman year, I came in from Carroll, and note-taking was a little bit new to me. I wasn't really used to taking all those notes. And it took a little bit for me to get there and advocate to my teachers that I needed a little help note-taking, and it was in my IEP. I was able to work with my freshman year 8th grade history teacher, Miss Huggins. And what we do once a week, or after in office hours, after every meeting and class we had, she would say, "Show me your notes. What do you have?" And by doing so, I would show her my notes, and she said, "Okay, you did this correctly. Like, you have all these notes, but you did miss X, Y, Z." And that kind of helped teach me how to be a little bit more in tune and looking for those specific little details. And now I know I just had my first kind of note check in bio, and my notes were very similar to the teachers, and she said I did a great job. Like, she can tell as I took the time and was able to understand what was going on. I took the correct notes. So I say that school definitely works to help develop your note taking, setting you up for success.
Thanks, Connor.
All right, in the spirit of time, I'm going to move over to our next slide, which we should be closing in on the final slides. And we have 6 minutes scheduled. So if you have questions that need to be answered, please drop them in the chat while Christine, myself, and Connor work through the last slides.
So again, in the interest of time, I do think we've kind of covered this at some level. If I look at my day in terms of the assistant dean of academics, the director of learning support, and sort of determine where I'm spending my time, one of the major areas is working with the teachers. Working with the teachers who are, constantly showing that they are willing to support students and that they're willing to use their resources here, the learning support department or the academic office, to learn more about how they can do that. So it is our teachers, as both Connor and Mike and I have said, they're available. They're available to provide support both during the required times in terms of office hours, but outside of that. This is really a very student-focused environment. So again, we've talked about office hours, so you're aware of that. And I just want to sort of leave you with this slide in terms of, I said in the beginning, I came from Carroll, love Carroll, understand Carroll is one of the most amazing supportive environments. The fact that I'm here and I'm feeling good about what I'm doing, I think, you don't know me all, but should say a lot, because this is a very similar environment. Of course, it's a regular education environment. It takes some students a while to find that success, but with the supports that are here, many of the Carroll students can be successful here. Sorry, someone just walked in. And not just because of the learning support program, but because of the culture of the school, and our desire to stick with the mission, our desire to recognize, inspire, support, and empower our students is really the truth when we talk about Lawrence Academy.
All right, awesome. I'm going to shoot through the last few slides and then open up the Q&A. We've got some good questions coming in to address those before we all sign off. So again, for more additional support, our website is great. Shift there. Applying to LA, the first step is fill out an inquiry. And then, the transition in the application process really moves from the inquiry to the visit, to the applications, decisions, revisit, enroll. Once you get the inquiry, and it's pretty self-explanatory as far as our system, our outreach. And if you do have any questions, please reach out to us. We are more than happy to help you all out. And then as we go through the questions, I'll leave up this slide. So if you need to contact me or Christine, please feel free to do so. Just some questions that came in that we can kind of finish up with. And maybe this one's a good one for you, Christine. Can you discuss the 10th grade transition from Carroll Upper School to LA?
So a student coming from the Carroll's 9th grade program.
Yeah, 9th grade to 10th
to our
grade.
10th grade.
Yeah.
I think that it's very similar in terms of going from 8th grade to being a freshman here at Lawrence Academy. I will say that, Lawrence Academy's 9th grade is definitely a place where students, there are bumps in the road and they can make mistakes, and teachers are there to help them back and help them find success. The 10th grade is a little bit more fast moving in terms of a student's introduction to that program. But I think that what they're doing in Carroll's upper school is providing them with the self-advocacy skills and the independent work habits that they'll need to be successful here. Again, a little bit more fast moving, but the support still exists for those students. And there is a recognition that the student is coming in as a 10th grader, did not necessarily have the 9th grade experience, and might need a little bit more guidance in terms of finding success quickly.
Perfect. Thanks, Christine. And then another question, probably more appropriate for you. How flexible are teachers around ADHD giving giving students a moment to move around, et cetera?
I think that teachers are very flexible with that. It's not a question that comes up often in here in terms of a student coming in and saying, look, I need a real movement break and I can't get it, or discussions from parents. I think there's enough opportunities to just move around into that 75-minute block to begin with. We are not a lecture environment where a teacher starts class and lectures for 75 minutes. That would never happen. We are intentionally getting students moving in different directions so that they're not sort of bogged down with one topic throughout the entire class. So it's not an issue. I think there's flexibility there.
Wonderful. And then Connor, a question for you. Could you give a piece of advice to current Carroll parents to help their students in the application process and school search? Like, what advice do you have for parents or students in their school search?
I would say definitely look for, a strong learning support area. Also making sure that the teachers are going to put the students first. I know I looked at a couple schools where it turned into, if you need extra academic support, then you're not going to be able to play this sport. So I would say it's definitely useful. And the thing that drew me to Lawrence Academy was that it was worked into my schedule. It wasn't like I had to work it around my schedule. It was already built in so that I could use it whenever I needed it. And I would say that's a big kind of piece for Carroll families to look at.
Perfect. A few more to work through. Christine, appropriate for you, what is the process in place for passing information between teachers and learning support coach? Is it formalized? Are there meetings, et cetera?
In terms of, providing information about a student, is that what the question is? How do you communicate with your learning coach or teacher about your student's profile? I guess
the information between teachers to learning support coach.
Oh, so how does a teacher learn about what's going on with learning support?
Yeah, and how do they pass information to the learning support coach regarding like a student's progress?
So I think there was another question in the chat about how do parents get information on a student's progress. So we as faculty write comment cards to students every 2 weeks. So last night I sat down and wrote comments to my learning support students, giving them an update on their progress. Now they are written to the student, but parents are able to see them. Then at during midterms of each trimester, comments are written directly to parents. So during the midterm, we would sit down as a faculty and write comments to parents about how their students are making progress. That's one area, one sort of formal area where a learning coach might learn about what's going on for a student in a classroom. But I would say it's really much more informal than that. COVID changed this a little bit, but we're right back in terms of, if a math teacher is finding a student who's being really successful or needing some additional support in their math class, they're going to come find me. We're going to have a conversation about it. So it's a flow of information that just goes on throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the trimester.
I got time for one last question because we do have to get Connor off to his day. We've used him way too much, way too long. So Christine, this kind of came across, is probably a good one for you to conclude with, is can you give parents an idea of a student profile that would be successful at Lawrence Academy and maybe a profile that would not be the best fit as far as the support side of things on our end?
So I think Charlene probably threw this question at me because I used to ask it all the time. And I would say that it's a good question, but having gone from Carroll to Lawrence Academy, I would say it's probably not, hear me out on this one, the right question. I think the question really is, how long will it take for my student to feel fully successful at Lawrence Academy? I think that as parents, you need to consider that there are going to be bumps in the road, right? A student who comes in with a profile that maybe they have a reading disability and maybe a writing disability, that's a lot. They're going to have to access different support. They can do it. We have the support for them here to do it. If they're a great self-advocate, they're going to come in, they're going to advocate right away. Their first trimester, their second trimester, they're going to feel like, yeah, I found success. If they're not real comfortable with self-advocacy at this point in time, they're going to have to come in, they're going to have to figure that out. Like Conor said, some of the difficulties that students face make them grow, right? So a student who's not a great self-advocate, they're going to get supported by their teachers to self-advocate. They're going to get supported by their advisor, their learning coach, but it may take some time. So I don't think, in general, I don't think that there's a specific profile that will work and not work for Lawrence Academy. I think it's about what is the combination of that profile and how soon is that student going to be able to use all the supports necessary to find success. That being said, if you're a family who's thinking, I want continued remediation, I want my students' reading fluency to improve, I want the writing at this point in time, I don't think is strong enough, and I want real specific programs in terms of improving writing, may not be the place for the student now. But maybe a year at the upper school, maybe at the year someplace else, and then look at Lawrence Academy again, I think would be a good option. Again, if you have that word remediation or continued remediation in your head, maybe not now, I wouldn't take it off the table, but again, want to make that point. But think about it in terms of how long it's going to take to find success. And not that there will be moments of success, but of being able to really use what Lawrence Academy has to offer in terms of support. And then hopefully years from that, not needing the support at all.
It's a great answer, Christine, and I can neither confirm nor deny who submitted that question.
No, it was Charlene, I saw it.
I just want to thank Christine, Charlene, Connor, and everyone for joining us today. And again, sorry if we missed your question, but please send Christine and I a note. If we did, we're definitely happy to get to those. We do need to hop off this call, although we did have a lot of fun with you all. And again, if you have more questions, come visit us, come talk to us. We're happy to vet any questions. And if you have a profile you want to send us and do some things on the front end, we're happy to do that as well. So thanks again, and hope to see you all soon.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mike, Christine, Connor. It was wonderful.